Morning, everybody. We'll be starting in a minute. I want to make sure that my sound works. If anybody is in the room right now, you can leave me a comment in the comments feature. I think there's on the side. Make sure that hopefully it works. If anybody, I don't want to get some reverb there a little bit. We're going to start in about a little under a minute. Okay, I'm going to get going. My name's Matt Mariglia. I'm a Google certified trainer. I'm also a social studies teacher at Starpoint Middle School. The last 4 years I served as the technology integrator there. And welcome to our first of a few mini courses for Google on the Beach Bootcamp. The first one today that you can see on your screen right there, my HyperDoc is up there with my boy Chris Farley, called HyperDocs Are Hyper. We're going to take a look today at the basics of HyperDocs and then look a little bit at some digital learning. And then hopefully by then we can get you to your beach work and we should be off and running. Again, as always in this 3-week course, your responsibility is to watch the video and complete the beach work. Each morning before the video airs or I record it, I will send you a link to this a Google on the Beach classwork worksheet, and you can see the video link is here that you're able to click on and watch the video, and then the course materials that I'll have on the screen will also be available right here. So we're going to get started here. Part of the course, this first course called HyperDocs Are Hyper, I wanted to go through just quickly. I could teach a whole 3-hour course just on the basics of Google Docs and how to use them in that. But I'm not going to assume that everyone has a huge working knowledge of Google Docs. I'm sure many of you are aware of them. I just wanted to show you a couple of things here. And I have a list here that I'm going to follow. So we're at the basics of Docs there. First are the menus. There's so many buttons, and Google keeps adding buttons. Originally, their idea was not to be like Microsoft Word, but that in itself has kind of gone away a little bit because they keep adding things. A couple of buttons that I want to show you, especially in terms of using HyperDocs, there are a couple menus that I'd like to show you. So first is the insert menu up at the top here. Google has done quite a bit of changing to this over the years, and probably the most recent and most important change for you if you're creating HyperDocs and you're using any images or want to link to those images is the image tab. It used to just be, you could search for an image, copy and paste it, put it in here, but now they're doing everything right inside the doc for you. So if you have images saved, you can upload them. If you want to search the web right here, you can do that as well. You can find them from Drive if you use Google Photos, if you know the URL, and you can even use the camera on your device to snap the picture if it's of you or something else. My favorite is the search the web feature, which will help when you're doing HyperDocs. You click on the search the web feature, then over on the side, you can see I had a preloaded search called Penguins that will pop up. But let's say I was looking for pictures of computers. When you're working with students with HyperDocs, if they're creating their own or you're creating their own, there's no reason for them to have other tabs open. And the filter for this is usually, depending on your school district, is usually pretty good. So it's as simple as finding the picture you want, clicking on it, and then hitting insert, and it'll pop it inside your document. You can even drag and drop the picture if you'd like to, but it's nice to have that little bar to search for things right there and insert them. The other thing you can do with those images once you've inserted them is, because this is an image, I can right-click on it, which I'm hitting the right-click button on my mouse, and I can actually link to the picture. So in terms of creating a HyperDoc, as I'm going to show you what a HyperDoc is and what it's not, you can link to pictures that you put in your docs. So that's one of the menus that I wanted to mention, the image menu. The other thing, and it's a criticism of HyperDocs or a criticism of Google Docs in general, is drawings. When I want to use word art or I want to use a watermark or do other things like that, I have to use a drawing. So I'm going to go down to the bottom of my page where there is some room, and I'm going to hit Insert Drawing. I'm going to hit New, and another thing pops up. And this is where I have probably one of the more common questions I get is, where is word art? Where is the word art in a Google Doc? I find it in other apps like Slides, but I can't find it in Docs. So under Actions, that's where the word art is. So if you create any HyperDocs that have fancy text or you want to use word art as an image, this is where you do it. And you simply just, type in your word art, hit Save and Close. And then that word art's going to appear. Did I pop it up at the top? No, it should be down at the bottom there. Where did it end up? Where did it end up? I think my cursor was not in the right spot, so it maybe did not end up in the best spot. So let's try that again. New. I'm going to go to my actions here. Hello. Click off of it. There's my hello. Then I'm going to pop it in there. Beautiful. Okay. So now that word art becomes an image that I can manipulate and move around. So that's kind of where the word art is hidden. I've had that question a lot when I teach about Google Docs or HyperDocs, and that's where it's hidden. So let me get rid of that there. Delete that. So that's the insert menu with the images and drawings. One other little quick thing I wanted to show you about menus is this little paintbrush here that not a lot of us know what it's for or what you use it for, especially if you're creating Google Docs and you want to have similar formatting to your text and your words. This little paintbrush can come in handy. So let's say, for instance, I was typing in blue like I did here, okay? And I like that italics. I like the fact that it was blue and it was the right size. I really like that formatting, and I want to repeat that. So let's say I'm going to highlight this Google, and I'm going to click my little paint can there. And notice my paint can stays down, and when I move my cursor, I have a little paint, I call it a paint can, a paint roller with it. So I want to change the word video to look like the word Google. So when I go to highlight that and I let go of my mouse, boom, it pops it and it formats that word to whatever I have on the page. So I don't have to go back and highlight this and remember what I did. It's that simple. And if I don't want it, I just simply undo it. There's one other thing, if you want to do this over and over again, you can do with the paint can, is I'm going to highlight my certified word there because I like that blue and I like that italics and I like the size. And I'm going to go over to my paint roller, my paint format button. I'm going to double click it. Double clicking it holds it down so I can do it more than once. So I highlight that, and then I'll highlight that. And notice the paint roller doesn't go away. So that's if you double click it. It doesn't really show that you double clicked it, but if you double click on it, it will allow you to keep formatting. And that is when you're creating docs or any kind of the basics of Google Docs, it's nice when you're able to format things that quickly. I call it one of the unsung heroes of Google Docs that we don't really use that much. So let me fix my stuff back. So those are the basics of just a couple of things in the menus I wanted to show you. The images and the paint roller, which you might use quite a bit. Besides the insert image, you have the image button right here that you can use as well. That'll have you do it. That'll have you be able to insert an image the same as if you use the insert button. One more quick thing when it comes to menus and the basics of docs. If you're sharing these documents via Google Classroom, which is a whole other separate conversation for those of you that know Google Classroom, or you're putting it in there and each student is getting a copy, please don't forget under File your version history. When you click on See Version History, it shows you all the history of that document and what's done to it. Students will try to get around these things by making a copy of your document and then working on the copy so you can't see what it is that they're doing. Those, when I was in the classroom, and I will be in the classroom, are no-nos for me. If I share a document with a student, I want them to work on that document. If I see them going off of it and making a copy or creating another, then the student and I will have to have a conversation about what exactly or why they did that. So that's the basics of menus here. Real quick, sharing, just in case anybody needs to know that. Most of the work you're going to do, all the work you're going to do for me in this course, you're going to share, and that's that beautiful button up in the corner there. When you click on this, you're sharing. It's simply typing in an email address and giving me, hopefully, edit access to your document so I can see it. I have my addresses preloaded. You can see I have some emails that already pop up. The first 1 or 2 times when you type in, if you're typing in my name, you can see my name comes up because I'm in StartPoint domain. But when you're typing in my name into your share, it might not be there unless you've shared stuff with me in the past. So you might have to actually physically type it out. So if I began to, type in a name that I've never shared anything with, it's going to say something to me. Also, whenever I'm sharing outside of my domain, when you share something with me, it's probably going to prompt you and tell you, hey, you're sharing this outside of wherever you are. So if you're at newfane.winnyrick, it might say, hey, you're sharing this outside of your domain. If for whatever reason you have a problem sharing outside your domain, that's something that you're going to have to take up with your IT staff. If you're using just a regular Gmail address, you won't have a problem with that. But if you're using it from school, and for most places, they have it turned on, so you shouldn't have much of a problem. So that's real quick with sharing. Another basics of documents, especially if you're doing HyperDocs and kids are working on documents, are comments. Google has changed the commenting feature quite a bit. It used to sit up in the corner here. Now, as I move my mouse, you can see as I click on words and things, that button kind of appears and disappears. It appears and disappears. So if you don't see it, sometimes when you right click, you'll see the comment there. Okay. So when I want to make a comment, let's say I wanted to make a comment about this phrase right here, I can highlight it. It's going to make my comment feature appear. I can click on that comment feature and say, nice work. Type in the comment, and now it's going to appear on the side of the doc. Once I feel like the student has read it or the student has seen it, they have the ability to resolve it, which makes it disappear. They also have the ability, I have the ability to edit it or even link to it, which kind of goes with our HyperDocs as well. I can link to that comment whenever it's read or takes me somewhere else. So right now I'm going to resolve this to make it go away. And you can see it popped up here. So that's commenting. Real quick on commenting. Now the most important one that I have highlighted here, and that's linking. Okay. HyperDocs are documents that contain links. You can see my HyperDoc contains a lot of links, and those links can take us to see videos. They can take us to other websites. They can take us wherever we want to go, even within our own documents. We can even link to things in our Google Drive, pictures and things that we have. So linking is super important, and there's a few ways to link things. The most basic, which many of us probably learned when we started working with Microsoft Word all those years ago, is simply to highlight something, to right-click on it, and to click on the link. And now it's going to give me, it even gives me some suggestions if I want to have a definition of responsibility. I can even, it's picking up a document, which is the document I'm on right now, that I actually can put in. But if I have a link already copied, I can then go and paste it there. So what I did is I kind of have the Google syllabus open right here. So let's say I go into share and I have my link pop up, and I'm going to copy that link here. And so now I have a link copied, and you could be on an internet address, you could be on YouTube, on a video, wherever, and I want to link that to the word responsibility. It's whatever your preference is. You can right click and use link. You also have the button up in the menus here that you can use. So I'll click on that this time. That same box is going to pop up. Now I'm going to right click and I'm going to paste that in there. I'm going to hit apply. Now it's turned my word into a link. The links are what make the documents hyper. When we call documents HyperDocs, the links are what make them hyper, because you're not stationary on the documents. You can go somewhere else. So now when someone visits this doc and clicks on that, it's going to allow me to take them to that link. So super nice. Google has also added a couple of little icons next to your links when you're putting them in, a way to copy the link if you need to put it in more than one spot. You don't have to right click anymore. You just simply click on the link and hit that. And they also have a little pencil button that allows you to edit the link if you need to change it or fix it in any way. If I put the link in the wrong spot or I want to remove it because it doesn't work anymore, I can just simply click on that and we'll get rid of that. So that's a newer kind of link menu, which is kind of nice. Saves you from doing the right click and a few extra steps. I can also, like I showed you at the beginning, I can also link to pictures. I can link to just about anything. I can link to my Chris Farley Tommy Boy GIF up here if I want. I can right-click on that and add a link to it. Now, this GIF I got from somewhere else. You can see it's not giving me that option. It really depends on the GIF that you have. The more motion in the GIF I found doesn't let you link it. It's a rare one where you can actually find one that will link clean. I like to stick with stationary pictures and stationary words. We won't have much of a problem. So our first 10 or 15 minutes here has been about the basics of docs, and now we're going to get into the meat of you learning a little bit about what a HyperDoc is and how they work well. So before I ever talk about anything to HyperDocs, we have to talk about digital learning. And we have to talk about this model called the SAMR model, which is going to hopefully pop up on my screen here. This is the model that I use. There are many other models of using technology in education. I believe this one to be the simplest one. It's, to me, non-judgmental, and it's a simple scaling of when we use technology in a classroom as teachers, what level are we using it at? The simple levels, as simple as I can explain them, are substitution. By the way, whenever you have an image or a PDF now in Google, you can add comments to that if you want. I'm just using it for highlighting purposes as we're talking. It's direct substitute, no functional change. That's substitution. The next one is augmentation. You have the substitute where you put the technology, maybe you're using word processing in place of using paper, but there's a functional improvement. You got spell check with your word processor. You can change the fonts very easily with colors and that. And then what most of the SAMR models have is some kind of dashed line that runs right between the two. When you're using technology, it's just simply enhancing your lesson in substitution and augmentation. But once you get to across this imaginary dashed line and get into modification, the task gets redesigned. I believe that HyperDocs, when they're used correctly, land securely in this modification area. And at times, we can take the HyperDoc to a redefinition place. Now, obviously, when we're using HyperDocs and links, these are things that technology allow us to do. We can't click with our finger on a piece of paper and send us off to a video. You can't really do that. So it does redefine the task, but a good HyperDoc lives in this transformative modification where we can redesign a task and really get student input and take them different places. And it's a really important place to live. So when I tell teachers, when you're using technology in a classroom, when you're using it, we want to try to live in the kind of on this dashed line, the A&M range, and then once in a while visit redefinition. And we might even once in a while go back and visit substitution, because there are times where we just want a word process and that's it. And that's not bad. There's no judgment here. But we want, as much as possible when we're using technology, to live in augmentation modification area and visit that redefinition every once in a while. So that's the SAMR model by Dr. Rubin. I love to call him Dr. Rubin. Another thing to keep in mind, another thing to keep handy and hope you take from this is Bloom's taxonomy, which most of us as teachers have been taught in our college classes and we still use to this day. Kathy Schrock, who is one of my favorite online kind of tech integrators, she took kind of the idea of SAMR and changed it a little bit and used her own spin on tech for teachers and students. She's got her dashed line. Hers goes up instead of the one I showed you goes down. And she calls them traditional, enhanced, choice, and handoff. And then what she does with that is she sends arrows and says, for those of us that write objectives in our lessons, all of us do, here's all the different objectives and where they fall. So definitely use this as a reference and the SAMR as a reference when you're creating your technology lessons or building HyperDocs. And those things, administrators love to see them in lesson plans, especially if you're saying, you know, in your lesson plan, hey, I'm modifying the lesson, I'm redefining the lesson as to the SAMR model of teaching with technology. That's a nice little tip. Now we're going to take the SAMR model and then pop it into a HyperDoc. When you begin to sit down and create your own HyperDoc, this is a great place to start. It starts from the bottom up. So here's substitution. If you want to say to yourself, you know, you might be sitting there going, hey, Matt, what does substitution look like? Here are some examples of substitution right here. Nice and easy. Digital note-taking and creating drawings and step-by-step assignment directions. Once you move to augmentation, you have some digital literacy and digitizing reading assignments by adding responses and collaboration with of some things. And then really when you get into the transformative part of a lesson, you have some redesign of things. And here's HyperDocs. You can see they list them up here with a transformative way of teaching. And then down here, you know, videos. Once you get into some audio video, you're in the modified redefinition area. So this is a nice place to look for, hey, what types of things can I do with my HyperDoc and where do they fall? We want to try to do them as best as we can. So that's a nice example of digital learning. So I could have taken all of these and popped these into the resources area. I chose not to. I wanted to talk a little bit about digital learning in our first course here, so that's why I went to those. But in terms of HyperDocs, you might be sitting there saying, Matt, you just talked for 15, 20 minutes and showed us some docs, but you haven't really told us what exactly a HyperDoc is. So I'm going to take, and I take a lot, right from what I call the HyperDoc girls, the ones that are the authorities on HyperDocs, and I'll show you their site in a second. But this is exactly what they believe a HyperDoc to be. Notice that they have the word substitution right here. They don't want HyperDocs to be things that are substitute. So what exactly are they? They have these qualities according to the HyperDoc girls, Lisa, Kelly, and Sarah. They're transformative. They into that transformation piece. They transform learning. It's not the same old book and paper learning that we've all seen. They're interactive. In other words, they are clickable, big time clickable, going back and forth. They're personalized. So you can also in your HyperDocs allow for choice based on what level your kids are at, if you want to do differentiation, or you can create pathways. Many online learning classes I've taught, I've had pathways where I've shown my adult students, this is pathway 1 if you want to work with me. Here's pathway 2 if you want to be independent. They're engaging usually because they're audio visual. There's websites with graphics and videos and all kinds of things. And then this is the big one that they talk about a lot, the HyperDoc girls. It facilitates creativity and collaboration because it allows for so much range of responses and interpretation. It allows students to be creative and to collaborate if they're in the same document. Okay. At times, I will be honest with you, at times we will create things that look like this when we start, where we want the kids just to click and watch and come back and say something. We want all the answers the same. They are saying that that's not what a HyperDoc is. The HyperDocs are not designed to be that. They should be documents that allow people to go out and learn and interact with and be personal to them. And so this is really our goal when we create them, if we can. I look at this all the time when I create things for classes or for teachers. And I'm not perfect, but that's where we want to be ideally, I guess. So once we've looked at that, now we have a whole bunch of resources here, 2 through 4, for you to take a peek at before you get to your beach work. Say, well, God, do I got to create this from scratch? What's out there? And these ladies are wonderful in terms of the templates that they have. A nice picture of them over there on the right of what they want to use. This is how they have them organized right now. History and geography, math, special events and holidays. It might not always fit you, but I would encourage you, even if you're a math teacher, look in history and geography. If you're an ELA teacher, look in math. Because when you click on these, you will go into a Google Drive folder that they have opened up to you, and there is a slew. I'm hoping I picked a good one. Look at all these that are there, both in slides and in docs. There are tons of them. So as you take a peek at these or go through and when the pictures pop up, it's nice. You could say, you know what, I really like the way this one looks. So when I open this one up, hopefully it's going to let me open it up here. My computer's running slow because I have a million things running right there. So I apologize for the spinning. 2 of them was open up here. Let me X that out. So as I open these up, I can see what it is that they're doing with it, but I might like the colors. I might like how it looks. They like to do the engage, explore, explain type. There's a lot of different types of HyperDocs that you can take a peek at. So I might like this. I might say, well, I like this setup, but I'm going to use it with a math lesson. So I just simply have to go to File and make a copy. I can rename it. I'm going to call it my, I don't know, math lesson. And then I want to make sure I click down here and put it into my drive. So I have to go backwards till I get to actual my drive here. And you might have to click a couple times because they have a lot of folders. Now I'm going to click on my drive, and now I can pick which one I want to pop it in. Let's say I'm going to put it in this one, and I'm going to hit select. I'm going to hit OK. Now, once I hit OK, it's going to put it in that spot in my drive and also open up a copy of it that gives me complete editing rights. So I can change the links, I can change the pictures. So it just saves you a lot of time, and then you can make it yours. So they want you to do that. So they're fine with you using it as it is. The only thing that I tell people to do is if you do have a creator down here or somewhere on there where there is a creation person, just give them credit. Put it up at the top saying this was a document modified by me, but created by, in this case, it's at Kelly Hilton. I just like to give people credit. If they're going to share with me, I don't want anyone to think that I created it from scratch. I used her template. So that's a nice way to find some examples. And they have a lot of examples. I'm not going to waste all of the time of the video showing you all their examples, but there are a lot. So there's a templates. There's also where you can find them. There's also ones where you can click around to take a look at how to do HyperDoc. If you want a step-by-step, how do I do one from scratch, one by one by one? This is a great way to do it. They're teachers by nature, so they're going to tell you the best way to create a HyperDoc is to have an objective. That's as old as teaching. Okay, what's our objective here? Do I need to, analyze something, apply something, assess something? What grade level? How long is it going to be? The cycle of learning. This is where the girls list their different kinds of ways, to actually the types of HyperDocs. I showed you one that was explore, explain, apply. So, for instance, in that model, which is the model I use most frequently, there's a lot of links that allow people to explore. Like we explored digital learning, and we're clicking on SAMR and all that. Then I got into explaining what a HyperDoc was. And you can see on my thing here, we kind of did some exploring in these top two, doing kind of explaining on what exactly a HyperDoc is and what it looks like. And then the application comes when you do your beach work. So I took this HyperDoc right from this model of explore, explain, apply. I really like that. There are some other ones there. Workshop model, the 5 E's, which has engage included in it. There's one they call a HyperDoc model, and you can click there, and it'll send you to all the different templates in the folder, which, again, it's just high-quality stuff that they have, and they have a lot of them, okay? So let me get out of that. Another step to it is packaging. How do I want to use this or present this to kids? We call them HyperDocs, but they don't have to be on a Google Doc. They can be as slides. You can use My Maps. You can use Google Sites. Packaging is important. How do I want to present this to the students? And they give you some different samples of the packaging with the different Google apps that are there. Workflow, how's it going to look? A friend of mine and I, whenever we taught 7th grade social studies, we used to say, okay, kids walk into the room, what happens? So from the second they walk in, what happens? In your workflow include the devices, how they get them, all that kind of stuff. And then obviously the design. When you're creating your HyperDocs, this is going to be paramount to you. Please don't forget the 4 steps, but what's the page color going to look like? The fonts, the table properties. Am I going to link images? Is there going to be a spot where students can jot down their thinking if they each get a copy of this? How does this look in terms of design? So that's a real quick way to take a peek, like when you're getting started creating a HyperDoc. And I should say, too, when you're putting the grade level and the objectives, it's okay for kids to see that. That's actually good. Many of us as teachers, we have our objectives or essential questions on our boards or smart boards or whiteboards or chalkboards when the kids first walk in the room. And that's how we're assessing the lesson. Did we accomplish that objective? So there's some how-to. And then the little more detailed one, for those of you that get really into this, this is a checklist that I used when I taught this course to actually hack your HyperDoc. And this is, again, comes right from the girls. Looks very similar to the other one. It has the level 4, level 3. When we're creating our HyperDocs, can we check these off to show where we're at? So that's a nice little resource to have as well. All right, so we're about 29, 30 minutes into the video here, so we're going to move to the beach work here. This is the part that you have to do on the beach. Hopefully you're on the beach. That would be great. I'm not, by the way. I'm sitting at home. So there's a step-by-step guide. I should have probably put that in the resources, but it's there just in case if you want to look at that one. If you say, okay, Matt, I need an actual step-by-step guide. What do I do and when do I do it? I got to do 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm type A too. So that's there. You can make a copy of that and look at that. It's pretty in-depth. If you wish to go up and use the how-to HyperDocs, which is a little quicker, you can do that as well. Your beach work is simply this. Create your own HyperDoc. And this HyperDoc should be something for your classroom, something you can use come the school year. And I probably should add that in for your classroom. You can use any of the templates that you found. If it's somebody that has a credit on it, please give them credit saying you've adapted it from there. Make a copy of the HyperDoc once you have found a template. I should say of the template so that we know, so that you're the owner of it. And you can see in mine, I've used different colors and I've used GIFs and I've used all kinds of things. So if you're not comfortable with finding images or using images, simply use that insert image. That's the easiest way. If you are a person that can find images and cut and paste from things, try to give credit. Try not to steal, Disney logos and things like that in your HyperDocs. You can see I kind of put some cooking things here because this is a recipe. Basically, I used to call this the recipe. Use images, and this is most important when I do these courses. Don't just regurgitate what you found to do the course. I want you to create something that you can use this upcoming school year. That's the whole point of doing this. If you need help or have any questions, you can shoot me an email. I try to be as responsive as possible. For this little mini course, it's considered about an hour and a half. So I figure this video is about 30 minutes, and it gives you about an hour to sit down and create a HyperDoc. I can usually tell whether HyperDoc has been created in an hour or it's been created in 5 minutes just to get done. I'm not too picky, but I'd ask that you be honest and do the work appropriately. When you're done, it's simply hitting the share button up in the corner and sharing it with me. I have a master list that I keep track of what people send me. I'll put the link to it in there and a check mark. So when I share the end of the course with Cheryl, she can see the work that was completed and you guys all can get credit for what it is that you did. So that's a quick little 30 or so minute explanation of what HyperDocs are. Hopefully this helped. And for those of you that are watching after I recorded it, hopefully you're enjoying your summer break and spending a little time learning with me. I appreciate that. So I'm going to sign off now. Our next video will happen Thursday, July 18th. And I believe, if I am right, it is creating comics with slides. We're going to take a look at how to create some cool comics with a few tips with slides. And in future ones, we're going to look at super Google Sites, fun with forms, some spreadsheets, which I don't love, but I'm beginning to love. Hopefully I can share that with you. And then we'll end it August with kind of a little a way to become, if you're learning Google and you're good at Google, why not become a certified educator and have that little badge that you can add to your stuff, your email and your references and that. So that's HyperDocs or Hyper. Hope everyone enjoyed it. Enjoy the work. If you have any questions, shoot me an email and I should be able to get back to you pretty soon to help. Have a great day.